Hello again, dear viewers, and welcome to another episode of Chris's Awareness Knits. I am having a great day. I didn't have to work today, didn't have to work yesterday, and so I made this lovely sweater. So I made it on my circular knitting machine. Each side is one panel, just extremely long. Almost 300 rows of panel knitting on the knitting machine. Then the arms are 125 rows on the panel knitting on the knitting machine as tubes, which I love. They came out so good. They're so comfortable. And since I decided to add this green color, I picked up my stitches and made myself a lovely knit one, purl one binding at the base. So that's what I'm wearing today. I made it yesterday, so I'm super excited. I finished my purple sweater, which is currently being blocked. The only problem right now is that my gas is out, and that means that I am not very warm. My gas heater is off, so I have to use the electric heater. And it's really not cutting it. Really not cutting it. My toes are cold. My feet are like ice. So I have my trusty electric blanket here, which really is helping me get through this winter situation. I've called the gas company, but as you know, I live in Japan, and so there is a language barrier. I was able to convey that I don't have any gas and that this is disturbing. So they said they'd be here around 11:30 in the morning. It is currently 11 o'clock in the morning. So hopefully they should be arriving any moment now. I decided to make the video because I was just sitting here knitting and would be interested in having a conversation with you guys. Of course, when they arrive, I'll stop the video and pick it up later. So those are my finished objects. I finished my purple sweater, which is currently being blocked, and I finished this sweater, which was really quick because I used the knitting machine. So it was a very, very quick project. I basically did like nothing to finish it. My other finished objects is that yesterday I went on a scrunchie binge and I just used up all my scraps from my purple sweater, a couple of other scrap yarns, and just made a whole bunch of these little tiny adorable scrunchies. So I think that they are very cute and might sell well at a craft fair. I've also been working on making some, what do you call them, stitch markers and earring sets that I think would also sell really well at a craft fair. The problem, I think, with selling... Oh, they're here. Well, the gas man came and he showed me the reset button on the gas. So if it ever stops again, even though I've paid, I can just hit the reset button and then I don't have to worry about anything. Wait 3 minutes. So I've had a very successful Japanese situation. I've communicated my problem on the phone, and speaking a foreign language on the phone is like nearly impossible. But so I have communicated my issue on the phone. I got a guy to come out and fix my gas, so now I will no longer be Icicle Feet, Miss Chris Icicle Feet. Anywho, the thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about today is this sweater, and I'm making progress on my blanket for the Lioness project. I have to tell you, if I made another one, I would not do it in knit. I would do it in crochet. Because even though the drape of this and the fabric that it created is basically absolutely beautiful, it's taking forever. Forever. Like, I'm putting in 2-3 hours a day and I'm only getting like half an inch per day. I'm really not making as much progress as I'd like to be making. But I just need to put more time into it, I guess, because I've got I've got my cardigan now. I've got my sweater, which is being blocked. I stopped and made all these little things because, you know, the joy of the finished object is what's keeping me going on this particular object. Having so many finished objects, you get that finished object high, that like, I made this and it's ready and I finished it, and then you put in all your ends and you're like, this is it, man. I did it. I made my own clothes. I made this. And then you feel really excited about it. And so doing a couple of little projects in between my larger projects is really, really beneficial, actually, to me. So yeah, I was talking about this sweater and how I made it on my knitting machine. The other one the purple one I crocheted entirely by hand. And I'm not, like, the crocheted sweater took me 2 weeks. The knitting machine sweater took me like 5 hours. And a lot of that was me knitting the ends, the border, which I think I did a pretty good job at picking up all the stitches from the loom. You can see where it's connected over there, and a couple of drop stitches. So there's one panel and then one panel on this side. So there's no up here connection. There is a connection in the back to connect the two panels together. And I think that it's made a perfectly serviceable cardigan. I think if I were to do it again, I would do a little bit better on my connections. I might do a visible one because I feel like the invisible one is still visible. But this being the first time I've made a sweater on the knitting machine, the second time I've made a sweater on the knitting machine, and the first time I've made a cardigan, and that this was my own, like, plan and my own idea. I think for a first time, it's not bad. It's wearable. I'm gonna wear it to work. You know, I wore my purple sweater to a party, and people were like, "Wow, People were like, "Oh, I thought you bought that." And I was like, "Really? My scrappy sweater? You think I bought it? The scrappy sweater that I spent 2 weeks working on? You think I bought it? I didn't buy it. I made it." And then everyone was suitably impressed. And I think that that's the plus of I'm gonna say, finished object over the idea of making a pattern. People are like impressed by your finished object versus a pattern. But I might write up a pattern for this sweater. Once I think I'm gonna make a couple more to make sure that I've got all the dimensions down and that everything is, like, understandable. I think that's what you have to do when you're making patterns, is not just like write down your steps, but you have to make it several times so that it is perfected. And once it's perfected, then you can release a pattern, because I'm not going to release an imperfect pattern with joinings that I don't like, or, you know, that kind of thing. I'm not going to release an imperfect pattern and then expect all y'all to pay for it, because that's just rude. Which means that I currently only have 3 whips, which I'm usually a like 10 to 15 whip kind of girl. I have my Linus blanket, Project Linus blanket. I have this beautiful scarf, which is at about its halfway point. Obviously, it hasn't been blocked. Ignore that mess up over there. So I have this scarf, which is halfway done, and I have a set of crochet curtains that I've been working on. Oh no, I have 4 whips. The other blanket that I've been working on for years now, and a set of crochet curtains that I've been working on for years. So is it a current whip? No. Is it something that I intend to finish? Yes. So those are the things that I intend to finish. The curtains are a crochet project, but all my other current whips are knitting projects, which I'm not terribly excited about. I feel like crochet projects go so much faster. And that could just be because I'm not a particularly quick knitter. So I've got those things on go, and then I have the sweater that I'm planning to make now that I've figured out how to make a sweater. So I'm just gonna follow the same pattern that I used last time to make my sweater, which is basically not a pattern at all. It's just basically putting the thing on like 50 times. But instead of being stripy and scrappy, it'll be a single color sweater. I think that will come out really, really nice. And instead of using triple crochet like I used on my last sweater, I'm gonna do half double, because I think that I want a material that you can't see through as well. Like it doesn't matter on the scrappy sweater, because I'll wear something underneath it, which I probably will also do with this new sweater, but I would like a thicker material that has a little bit less of my undergarment showing. Let's see, what else? What have I been up to? I had a lovely Christmas with friends. We did Christmas Eve together at a friend's house, and she's Brazilian, so we had coxinha and picante and some booze. We just had a wonderful time watching a movie and hanging out, and you know, so that was lovely. Other than that, not much going on in my life. Fixed my gas. Got my gas heater all fired up. So soon I will not be an icicle. And that's something that's really important this time of year, is making sure that everybody has heat. Everybody has a way to keep warm in the winter, even if it is, you know, just an electric blanket or a regular blanket, because there's nothing more painful than turning into an icicle. And that's something that we can that, you know, the gas was paid for by the their apartment, but they had to pay the electricity, and so they couldn't use the central heating, and instead their mom would turn on the oven and open it. You know, these are things that shouldn't be happening to people in the United States, in the richest country in the world. Nobody should be living off the heat provided by an open oven. One of the apartments that I lived in the US, I was in Connecticut at the time, uh, wasn't properly insulated, and it was an attic apartment, which means in the summer it was like death. All the windows open, fans going. Oh my God, I'm gonna die. Didn't spend very much time in there during the summertime. And then the winter time, it wasn't insulated, so all of the heat would just escape out. And we only had the heat in one room, and that room was the kitchen. So I bought a couple of electric heaters, and I bought all these things to like cover the windows, and, you know, cuddled up with my boyfriend and our 3 cats and all kinds of stuff. And it was still awful. And I had money. I had the money to buy those gas heaters. I had the money to pay my electric heaters. I had the money to pay my electric bill. I didn't, you know, even with that, I was still suffering from the cold. Because in Connecticut, it gets down -10, -20. You know, it's cold. And there are people who live in even colder parts of the country who can't afford their heating bills in the winter. And that's just like, Connecticut has a law that for lack of payment they can't shut down your heat, but they can charge you fees for non-payment, which means that if you decide I'm just going to keep my heat on all winter and then deal with it in the summer, well, your cost is skyrocketed. It's one of the things about being poor, not really poor, but having to make those decisions that keep people poor. Because I can keep my heat on all winter, but I'll be paying it off all summer, because it'll be more expensive to keep the heat going because I can't pay the bill today. If I could pay the bill this month, then I wouldn't have all these extra fees. And it's those fees, those extra late fees and all those kinds of fees that keep people poor. You know, they keep people from moving forward. Because, yeah, okay, a late fee because you forgot, that's one thing. It's to remind you. It makes sense to have a late fee. But a late fee because you can't pay is a different animal altogether. And I think that that's another thing that I want to talk about, is the things that keep people poor. Now, let's say you don't have enough money this month to fix your headlight. It went out, you need to fix it, you don't have a choice, it's not legally on the road, but you need to work, and you don't have enough money to fix it this month. Because if you fix it this month, then the electricity bill's not getting paid, or this bill's not getting paid, or you're not going to be able to make rent. But you're working a 40-hour-a-week job. You know, you're hustling, and you still can't make enough money to fix that headlight. So you drive around for a couple of weeks with a busted out headlight, and what happens? You get pulled over and you get a ticket. Suddenly that busted out headlight is even more expensive because you got a ticket for it. And you're like, well, I couldn't pay for the busted out headlight. How am I going to pay for the ticket? Like, it's just a tax on people who can't pay. And if you don't pay your tickets, you end up in jail. Even more hours you can't work. How are you going to pay that? How are you going to make bail if you don't have enough money to pay for a busted headlight? You know, but if you're rich, whatever. I got a ticket for like $300. I paid it, no problem. Yeah, that's a $300 ticket could be the end of someone's like housing. You know, so there's that too. You know, I can't pay for a parking space, so I park wherever I can, then I get a parking ticket. Well, I can't pay that either. You know, and these are the kinds of things that keep people poor. uh, a fee, a overdraft fee. Like, let's say you have a checking account and a savings account, and so you don't think, you know, you're not keeping exact track of it, and then all of a sudden you have this overdraft fee, $25. Well, there's your savings for the whole month. So now you got to take the money out of your savings to pay the fee. It's like, what's the point of that? What are you supposed to do? You don't have enough money to pay the fee. You don't have enough money to pay the original charge. So, and since you have things like this on your record, your credit score is going to go down. And if your credit score goes down, then you're not even going to be able to get credit. Which means, you know, you couldn't put that on a credit card, so you had to put it on your bank, even though you don't have enough money for it. What are you going to do? These are the things. Like, most of us crocheters and knitters, we have enough money for having a hobby. Even if we try to profit off that hobby or at least get it to pay for itself, that's one thing. But there are people who can't even pay for regular life. And I think that that's something that we should think about. You know, the difference between that $25 hank of hand-dyed alpaca yarn versus a $25 late fee for somebody's electricity bill. I'm going to choose to pay that person's electricity bill every time, if I can. You know, you have to have some nice stuff for you too. Like, I'm not saying, you know, we should all stop having nice things and, you know, spend all our money helping others. But I am saying that it's something to consider. It's the winter months and it is cold. Maybe you're a sock knitter. Donate some big old woolly socks. You know, just do whatever you can. Maybe you're making 50 scarves for sale. Why don't you donate 3 of them? You know what I mean? Like, I have enough to give a little bit. Giving should never put you at a disadvantage. But, you know, we all have stuff we're not using. A pair of socks with a hole in the toe that you know how to darn. Just darn it up, send it out. Send it to a homeless shelter. They're always looking for socks. Maybe you're a sewer. Sew up a couple of, you know, blankets, pouches, all the kinds of things that you just need. Sweaters and those kinds of things. Because being cold is the worst for me. I'll take being hot any day of the week. But being cold, where there seems to be nothing you can do to warm up your icicle feet, because that's what happens to me. My feet turn into literal icicles, and I can't feel them anymore. They're not warm. They don't even hurt. They're just gone. And if I didn't have the money to pay for things, then if I didn't have the money to pay for heating, if I didn't have the money to pay for good shoes, if I didn't have the money to pay for good socks, I'd be suffering. And there are people suffering right now. So just something for us to think about while we do our hobby. Think about others. Put some of your love and your thinking into charitable giving. And I think the whole world will get a little bit better. Well, thank you for coming to another episode of Miss Chris. I have a blog at Chris's Awareness Knits, 2 S's on Chris, 2 S's on Awareness, 1 S on Knits. You can check me out there. I'll be posting more about my yarny adventures around the world now that the world is starting to open up, and I'll be posting myself knitting in some different places. I also have an Instagram, Facebook, and this YouTube channel. So thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. Y'all have a good day now.